The Limpopo Education Indaba is currently underway in Polokwane. Earlier, the summit was interrupted by a deaf person demanding an interpreter. Premier Stan Mathabatha is hosting stakeholders in education to discuss the declining trend in the National Senior Certificate performance. SABC News reporter Pimani Baloyi spoke with the Limpopo Premier and she's got the latest.
The Education Indaba in Limpopo, which was called by Limpopo Premier Stan Mathabatha, who wanted stakeholders to come together around a table and figure out what led to the decline in the pass rate of this province. Limpopo recorded number last year, and it was the only province that failed to reach the 70% pass rate threshold. We are joined by the Premier right now to speak more about this. Premier, before we speak about this Indaba, there was a brief disruption, and we've seen you acknowledging that something should have been done, where we saw a lady that we gather comes from a special school was saying there was no representation of for somebody to interpret for them as the deaf society. May we briefly talk about that?
Yes, that was really very unfortunate. It was very unfortunate. We had not expected that such an obvious mistake can be committed, because it must be standard. It must be standard that every event, more especially event of this magnitude, must have sign language interpreters. That is why we were so disappointed and so embarrassed, and we actually had to apologize to the deaf community. And I still want to apologize very profusely to the deaf community, because really that was not supposed to happen.
Thank you so much, Premier. But I must also thank you for, there's commissions happening currently inside where people will be breaking into different commissions to discuss various stakeholders. But in your address, you said something ought to be done. We cannot take this line down. Take us through the significance of this summit and what you're hoping to achieve.
This summit is very important. We, as a result, we would want to see targeted, sort of what I would call quantifiable progress. That we are going to set targets which are quantifiable, so that in every month as a province, we come together. Maybe let me take off this. Every month as a province, we take stock of what happened. Yes, we take stock of what happened during the course of that month in that particular Department of Education. Remember, I've got two advisors. So the advisor, one of them, Mr. Mello, will actually be will actually be given an instruction to concentrate on this issue. In terms of the results, in terms of the report of the Education Indaba, the education law, where are we? How far are we? How are we doing in terms of implementing the decisions of the law? You know.
MEC, Premier, just lastly, the MEC, when she was opening the Indaba, alluded to disciplinary actions being taken against some senior officials from circuits and districts, as well as what she termed chronically poor performing schools. So take us through, should we also anticipate disciplinary actions from people from, instead, for instance, the provincial department?
Well, I don't want to sort of be judgmental before we even get into the ring. What I want to do now is to go into this ring open-minded and hear what people have to say about the problems. Hear what people, the advices, the wisdom of the people who are in this hall are actually going to direct the kind of actions that we are going to come up with.
And then, Premier, there was criticism as we were sitting in the hall that it seems there is little representation of learners, for instance, little representation of preschool principals, and very little representation of teachers, people who are in a classroom on a daily basis. Like as this was being arranged, did you make sure that all stakeholders are represented, and do you think you'll get a clear picture of what the problem is in the province?
The instruction from EXCO was that the learner organizations, you know, your COSAS, your DASO, your whatever, will be actually be invited to this to this Lohotla. Your teacher organizations, your SATU, PEU, and all of them, they will be represented in this Lohotla. We expect them to be represented in this Lohotla. Obviously, we can't accommodate everybody. Can't say teachers, students or learners, all of them must be there. There will be those who are representing them. And we take it, if we take all these student membership organizations, we take teacher membership organizations, we invite all of them to this gathering. That in itself says we have been quite accommodative.
Thank you so much, Premier, especially for taking your time off the commissions. That's the Premier of Limpopo, Mr. Stan Mathabatha, was speaking to us about this Education Indaba that is being held here in the province to discuss ways to improve the pass rate in this province, to also discuss ways to ensure that, you know, the foundation phase in the province is up to standard in comparison to other provinces. For now, we'll hand back to you in studio.
All right, many thanks to Pimani Baloyi, our SABC News reporter, in conversation with the Limpopo Premier Stanley Mathabatha as well on the sidelines of the Limpopo Education Symposium, which is currently underway, which seeks to find solutions how the province could move towards educational excellence.